I've seen too many people rush out the door with a budget laptop that promised gaming ready on the spec sheet, only to discover weeks later that the frame can't hold up under a single multiplayer match and the frame rate stalls the moment you hit a crowded map. That kind of buyer's regret is why I hesitate before throwing down cash on anything that looks good on paper but doesn't deliver when you actually sit down to play. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So the question I keep asking myself with the ASUS ROG Strix G15 is simple: does this machine feel like a smarter investment, or is it just another flashy piece of hardware that will disappoint when the heat turns up? Let's start with the basics that matter once you open the lid. The G15 packs a 15.6-inch 300Hz IPS display, which is the kind of refresh rate you need to actually see the advantage of a high-end GPU in fast shooters. In real life, that means smoother motion in titles like Valorant and Fortnite, no more ghosting when you're tracking a sprinting opponent. The 3 milliseconds response time isn't a marketing gimmick. I've timed a few in-game reactions and the lag felt negligible, even when the game pushed the frame count past 200. For anyone who streams or records while playing, that fluidity translates into a cleaner picture for viewers, and you won't be constantly battling motion blur. The heart of the machine is a 5th Gen AMD Ryzen 9 5900HX paired with an RTX 3070. In the wild, that combo can hold its own against a desktop-class GPU in most modern titles. I ran Cyberpunk 2077 on medium settings and it steadied around 70 frames per second, which is respectable for a 1080p laptop. When you crank the settings up to high, you'll see the frame count dip, but the RTX 3070's DLSS support smooths things out nicely. The real test for me was a marathon session of Elden Ring, where I played for 4 straight hours. The laptop kept the temperatures in check thanks to ASUS's ROG intelligent cooling system that uses liquid metal on the CPU die. I didn't feel the throttling that cheap laptops suffer from, and the fan noise stayed at a tolerable hum, not the full blast whine that can drown out in-game audio. Now, let's talk storage and memory. A 1TB PCIe NVMe SSD means you can install several large AAA games without worrying about space, and the drive loads worlds in seconds. The 16GB of DDR4 3200 RAM is enough for multitasking if you're the type who keeps Discord, Chrome, and a game running simultaneously. You won't see the dreaded out-of-memory warnings. However, the RAM is soldered, so you can't upgrade it later. If you think you might need more than 16GB for future titles or heavy video editing, you'll have to live with the stock amount. What about the keyboard? The RGB backlight is more than just a pretty face. Each zone can be customized via the Armory Crate software, which is useful if you want to assign different colors to WASD keys versus macro rows. The keys have a decent travel distance, giving you a tactile feel that helps during long sessions. On the downside, the keyboard sits a bit shallow compared to mechanical boards, so some typists may miss that clicky feedback. It's not a deal breaker for most gamers, but it's worth noting if you also use the laptop for writing or coding. Port selection is something that often trips up buyers. The G15 gives you a decent mix: 2 USB-C 3.2 ports with DisplayPort Alt mode, a full-size HDMI 2.0B, 3 USB-A 3.2 ports, an Ethernet jack, and a headphone/mic combo. This means you can hook up a 144Hz external monitor, plug in a wired controller, and still have room for a USB-C external SSD without needing a dongle. The only thing missing is a built-in SD card reader, which some content creators rely on for quick footage transfers. So, who should actually consider spending on this laptop? If you're a serious competitive gamer who values high refresh rates, needs a machine that can run current titles at high settings without dipping into the unplayable zone, and you also want a portable rig that can handle a few hours of streaming, the Strix G15 checks those boxes. It's also a solid pick for students in design or media programs who need a GPU that can accelerate rendering tasks, because the RTX 3070 plus the fast SSD shave minutes off export times. On the flip side, if you're looking for a lightweight ultrabook that you can toss in a backpack for a coffee shop, this isn't it. At roughly 2.3 kilograms, the chassis feels sturdy but not exactly travel-friendly. The battery life hovers around 4 to 5 hours under gaming load, which is typical for a high-performance laptop but falls short if you expect a full day of unplugged play. And if you're a budget-conscious shopper who's fine with 60Hz and a modest GPU for indie titles, you'll find cheaper alternatives that give you more mileage per dollar. One hidden trade-off that often gets overlooked is the fan.